Good morning and welcome to the 9th Annual Edgewood High School Hall of Fame induction ceremony. I am Kilo Mack, the very proud principal of Edgewood High School, and on behalf of the school and the Edgewood High School Alumni Association, co-sponsors of the Hall of Fame program here at our school, it is my extreme pleasure to play host for the introduction of the 6 new Hall of Fame members here at Edgewood High School Homecoming. I'd like to thank the Edgewood High School String Quartet, which provided the beautiful music as we entered in today. They have since left, but thank you. Also, among the distinguished guests you will meet in a little bit are more than 35 of the 60 living members of the Hall of Fame. With today's induction, there will be 68 individuals and 1 family in our Hall of Fame, which is unique. It not only includes alumni, but former staff and community supporters. We will also meet school leaders, elected officials, and other dignitaries who have joined us here today. But most importantly, you will be amongst the first to congratulate the 6 extraordinary people who will honor us as the new Hall of Fame members here at Edgewood High School. When our inductions begin in just a few moments, you'll get to meet an alumni representing Edgewood High School's class beginning from the mid-1960s through the late 1980s, and a former staff member who was both a teacher and administrator here at Edgewood High School and within the Harford County Public School system. Our inductees include a top student athlete at Edgewood High School and in college who went on to be a leader with 4 multinational corporations while serving others in whatever community he found himself. A woman who is top in her field for cybersecurity, who has been recognized as one of Maryland's most admired CEOs. A man who has spent 4 decades as a leader in the regional banking industry, and get this, students, while he was here at Edgewood High School in 13 years of Harford County Public Schools, never missed a day of school. It's pretty impressive, pretty impressive. An honor student and athlete who earned an appointment to West Point, served his country as a military officer, returned home to be a leader in the financial services industry, an actor with more than 160 Hollywood films to his credit, who used his fame to promote arts in schools and also fight against sexual violence. A former staff member who will be inducted today was a lawyer before he decided to devote his life work to education and found time along the way on his own to minister to those in prison. Like me, I know you will be inspired and filled with awe as you listen to our student representatives tell you about these extraordinary people. Just before that happens, I'd like to ask those in the audience and on stage to please stand as we honor our country with the national anthem, performed by the Edgewood High School Chamber Singers under the direction of Mr. Zachary Doimy. Thank you, Mr. Doimy and Chamber Singers. Audience, you may be seated. Okay, Hall of Famers. Today will be a full day involving our Hall of Fame members. After this ceremony, our student ambassadors will conduct tours of the building. Some of you are guests here. You probably it's your first time in our building, but we'll also take you around and see various sites throughout the building after this. After that, Hall of Famers and their guests will be treated to lunch cooked and served by our Family Consumer Science students and staff. Then the new Hall of Fame members will be introduced at the Fall Student Pep Rally. Later this afternoon, they will be honored guests at the Homecoming Parade. Then, thanks to the Alumni Association, our PTSA, and others, there will be a tailgate party in the parking lot in front of our stadium with food and games for all. Finally, today, Hall of Fame members will be introduced to those in the audience in attendance at the homecoming game tonight. This is an added feature this year. For the first time, the Alumni Association is sponsoring Hall of Fame game outing tomorrow at Geneva Farm Golf Course, fundraising for the Bud Coakley and Weed Bradley scholarships. For more, you could please see Mr. Scott Elliott. Scott, you here? Okay. It's never too late to donate. So the next time that you walk down the hallway, take a moment, take a look at the 69 plaques. This will give you a glimpse at the lives and contributions of our Hall of Famers. The Hall of Fame continues to happen with the enthusiastic support of the Edgewood High School leadership and the unwavering leadership of the Edgewood High School's outstanding Alumni Association. One piece of logistics, as the bell rings, I ask those students who are here to quietly exit as we continue our program. Now it's my great honor to introduce a proud member of our Hall of Fame, an even more proud member of the class of 1972, Ms. Nadine Wellington.
Wow, it's homecoming. That is amazing. You know, back in 1972, we didn't have blue hair. We didn't paint our faces, but we loved homecoming. The game was awesome. We had the best drum line ever. They would line up outside, and as soon as they started the cadence, you knew it was time for it all to start. And whether you were a cheerleader on the homecoming court, in the stands, playing football, there was nothing like homecoming game. Then there was the dance. That was amazing. And of course, we spent all day decorating the gym with curlers in our hair. Okay, those were the things you put in your hair and that made it pretty. We didn't have, okay, they were called curlers. Then we wore the mum. We had the big white mum, and the mum was a tradition. Your date brought you the mum. It had little gold footballs on it, and it had little red ribbon, and you saved it for years. I cannot tell you how thrilled I am to be a part of today's homecoming celebration and Pep Day, and a day where we honor those who have given so much to the community at large and have represented our alma mater so well. Before we get more into our program, though, I have a special presentation to make. There is a man with us today who earned the title, the Voice of the Rams, not only for more than 2 decades as the public address announcer for Ram football games, but for his dedication to his alma mater during the almost 60 years he has graduated from Edgewood High. He served his country in the military and his community as a career police officer, all the while giving freely of his time for worthwhile causes, or just as a helping hand for his legions of friends and family. For 7 of the previous 8 years of this Hall of Fame induction ceremony, he took 1 year off in 2013 when he himself was inducted into the Hall of Fame. He has been right where I am this morning, an MC for the program. He announced last year that he would be turning over these duties to me, but we couldn't let him get away without showing him how much we appreciate his skill and leadership. Please welcome 1960 Edgewood High School graduate and class of 2013 Hall of Famer, Mr. John C. Bowman.
Well, I'll bet you thought you were finished listening to me on this microphone, weren't you? This is a total shock. Blown away is a good definition. I just want to thank everybody who was involved in this presentation. Thank Edgewood High School for putting up with me for all these years. And just wish all the new inductees all the luck in the world. And I guess that about thank you very much. Thanks, Scott.
The Edgewood High School Hall of Fame began as a dream of the Edgewood High School Alumni Association a decade ago. A dream that we could honor some of those alumni, former staff members, and community supporters who have accomplished so much and given back so freely to the school we love and to their communities. Thanks to the support of the Edgewood High administration and the community, that dream has grown into a reality that has exceeded even the loftiest vision. 62 individuals and one family have been inducted into our Hall of Fame in the first 8 years of the program. This morning, 5 more alumni and 1 more staff member joined the group, forever recognized as stalwarts in the Edgewood High School Hall of Fame. We're thrilled once again to have Mr. Dennis Cassidy of the Hartford Cable Network with us taping this event. It will be shown on HCN channels during the month of November, and you can watch it on demand or purchase your own DVD. Speaking of the awesome printed program, we are indebted to Mrs. Monica Chevalier and her Hartford Tech High School graphic arts students for producing it. And for the first time, her tech students created the amazing posters of this year's Hall of Fame when you came into the lobby this morning. Just a reminder, Hall of Famers, those posters are yours to take home. Put them right out front, in the front door. There you go. Each year, since we started the Hall of Fame back in 2011, we've been honored to have with us members of the very first graduating class, 61 years ago. The charter graduates, members of the Edgewood High School class of 1958. Please, as I say your name, please stand and face our audience, and audience, when they are all called, please join me in a round of applause. With us today are Mrs. Janice Cullen Morrison, Miss Joanne Markowski Scarborough, and Miss Jeannie Hughes Torville. Congratulations. We are honored to have 43 of our 69 Hall of Famers or their representatives with us today, and you're going to have the chance to meet them right now. You'll recognize some by the medallions they're wearing, similar to the one I have on. As I call your name, please rise, turn and face the camera, and please remain standing until all of your names have been called. Afterwards, I'll ask the audience then to join us in acknowledging your achievement. First, from the charter class of 2011. On stage with me is our Madam President of the Alumni Association, Mrs. Helen Radke Morrison. And in the audience is Mr. Tony Mioli, Ms. Carol Barker, Mr. Howard McComas III, Mr. Charles Marzin, Mr. Paul Metzger, Dr. Carl Roberts, and Mr. Bob Williams, along with Mrs. Kim Coakley-Kaczynski and Miss Shelley Coakley-Vines, daughters of the late Bud Coakley, and Coach Coakley's grandson, Alex Vines, representing their father and granddad. From the class of 2012, in addition to myself, we have Mr. Scott Elliott here on stage. From the class of 2013 is the man you've already met, Mr. Bowman, along with Mr. Steve Williams and Mrs. Bonnie Murkowski Hayden. In addition, we have Mr. Skip Richardson, representing his late wife, Mrs. Rose Ellen Goodrich Richardson. And the class of 2014 joining us is Mrs. Deborah Gavin Murlock, and representing his late father, Mr. William Doc McShane, is Hall of Fame candidate Mr. Tom McShane. From the class of 2016, on stage, Mrs. Deborah Lynn Bassler, and in the audience, Mr. Mark Walkow, along with U.S. Marshal Johnny Hughes. From 2017, taking part today are Mr. Joseph Brown, Mr. Robert McCone, Miss Karen Carey, Mr. Brian Donnelly, and Mr. Keith Rawlings, along with 5 of the 7 Dang siblings, Mrs. Thon Liam Dang Campbell, Mrs. Min Duck Dang Sheridan, Mrs. Nok Quinn Dang Simon, Mrs. Bon Tom Dang Miller, and Miss Don Thong Tang. From last year's group, the class of 2018 is Mrs. Mara Ringgold Choates, Mr. Frank Mazzanotti, Mr. Robert Bruce, Sr., Dr. Kenny Messman, Mr. Frank Oggins, and Mr. Richard Chismar. And now let us join together in acknowledging and showing our appreciation for these fine, outstanding honorees. From our school system, you've already met Mrs. Debbie Bassler, Supervisor of High School Education, Health, and Athletics. As I call names of our distinguished guests on our stage, please ask you to stand. So Mrs. Bassler, would you please stand? And joining Mrs. Bassler and Mrs. Bong Tom Dang Miller, Human Resources staff and labor specialist. Also meet Mrs. Deborah Judd, Assistant Superintendent for Business Services, Mrs. Diane Mack, Director of Elementary Education, and Mrs. Jillian Lader, Manager of Communications for the school system. And we are very delighted to have joining us Edgewood Middle School's principal, Ms. Melissa Williams. From our state government, joining us is Ms. Genevieve Foley, representing Senator Bob Cassilly, and State Delegate Mr. Steve Johnson. From our county government, representing County Executive Mr. Barry Glassman, is Mrs. Cindy Mumbury, and from the County Council, we have Council President Mr. Patrick Vincenti, along with Council members Mr. Curtis Beulah and Mr. Andre Johnson. Also is the President and CEO of the Hartford County Chamber of Commerce, Ms. Angela Rose. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedules to help honor our Hall of Fame inductees. We thank you so much. Now, among the most important people with us today are our students. Where would we be without you? And wait till you hear these people sing. They are amazing. Thank you for being here, and thank you, students, for all you do. Let's give you a hand. I know many of you heard the string quartet as you came in, and I'm sure you were impressed with our chamber singers' rendition of the national anthem. You will hear from them again in just a few minutes, and you'll need your Kleenex. You'll also get to meet our student ambassadors. What fine young people these are, these wonderful representatives of Edgewood High School, who will be introducing the 2019 Hall of Fame inductees. They've also served as greeters today, and they're among your tour leaders later this afternoon. And now what we are all present for here today, the induction of our newest Edgewood High School class of 2019 Hall of Famers. I ask that you watch the screen above our heads as the lives of each of our honorees is played out in pictures, while 6 of Edgewood's finest current students tell you a little about the accomplishments of each inductee. And by the way, we owed a debt of gratitude to Hall of Famer Ms. Karen Carey and Mr. Gary Walker for creating the slideshow you will see, and to Mr. Ken Ewers, who will be running the technology. Now, we're streamlining the process again this year. After the awards from the Alumni Association, the school, and elected officials are read and explained to our first inductee, each subsequent inductee will be receiving the same awards without comment, which will be held for them by their student ambassador. And today, as we celebrate the many accomplishments and achievements of our inductees, I thought, what can I add a little bit that's not been done before? So I thought it might be fun to get an up-close and personal peek into the thoughts about the glory days. So I took the liberty of sending each honoree some off-the-menu questions, and I believe I came to know them just a little bit better, and so will you. They also entrusted to me to choose what I thought you might find enlightening or just plain fun. Our first inductee is class of 1965 alumni, Mr. Alfred D. Al Calabria. Al described himself as being involved, learning, and growing in his years at Edgewood High School. Among the staff who made the biggest impact in his life was Chuck Marzin, also a Hall of Famer. Al said he was my JV basketball coach and English teacher. He taught me proper sportsmanship on the athletic field and introduced me to Shakespeare and English lit. Al's life ambition to become senior executive of a company in an industry that was significant to America, and hold on to your seats when you hear what he's done. Here to formally introduce you to Mr. Calabria is Student Ambassador, Mr. Alex Rollett.
At Edgewood High, Al Calabria was a three-sport athlete, captain of the baseball team, where he was named All-County and defensive captain of the football team, earning the National Football Foundation and Hall of Fame award as a senior. He was an honor student, president of the National Honor Society, getting a scholarship to study physics during the summer of his junior year at the National Science Foundation. At Drexel University, he was class president for 4 years and played intercollegiate sports, including baseball, each year he was there. He eventually, after earning a master's degree at Johns Hopkins, he began an outstanding career where he was a senior leader with a multinational company. In addition, he was a strategic consultant in top companies and was an adjunct professor at 2 universities. But more than that, wherever his vocation took him, in the U.S. and abroad, Mr. Calabria was dedicated as a volunteer with a series of charitable organizations, as well as serving as a coach and leader in youth sports. Not one to rest on his laurels in semi-retirement, he is involved with nonprofit boards and public service. He'll tell you that it was his many experience at Edgewood High, especially the lessons taught to him by his teachers, coaches, and teammates, that gave him his base for a lifetime of achievements. Mr. Calabria and his wife of 48 years, Cindy, live in Lake Oswego, Oregon. They have 2 grandchildren and 4 grandchildren. Now, please join me in welcoming the most new deserving member of the EHS Hall of Fame, Mr. Al Calabria.
Congratulations. Welcome to the Hall of Fame, Al.
Thank you, Principal Matt. Thank you.
Oh, my. I'm short.
Sorry about that.
It's okay. Good morning. I'm Helen Morrison, president of the Alumni Association, and I'm here to present 2 things to Mr. Al. One is a copy of the plaque that's out on the wall, which he is a EHS Drexel University scholar, athlete, leader, earned his BS in mechanical engineering, master's senior executive with multinational corporations, advisor to Fortune 500 companies, dedicated church charity volunteer, youth high school leader. There you go, Al. And we have one other thing from the Alumni Association, which is a certificate. Mr. Alfred D. Al Calabria, alumni class of 1965, in recognition of having been named to be a member of the Edgewood High School Hall of Fame on October 4th, 2019, noting his academic, athletic, and leadership excellence in high school, college, his long and distinguished career as a leader with multinational corporations, and his dedicated service to civic and charitable causes. And it's signed by Scott Elliott, who's co-chair of the Hall of Fame committee, and myself as president of the Alumni Association. Okay, and we have here a copy of what appeared in the Aegis regarding all the Hall of Famers, and each of you will receive a copy of that as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. On behalf of the Harford County Council, I want to present this proclamation to Mr. Calabria for all your outstanding accomplishments and achievements, and just to tell you thank you for everything that you have done. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Councilman, it's been a pleasure to meet you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I appreciate that. Thanks. Hi. Good. Senator Bob Castley, you know, it's so important these days that we have heroes and mentors to look up to, especially real people that people can emulate. And that's especially true of our young people that we see around here. So I want to, first of all, thank Al and all the awardees for stepping up to the plate and being willing to serve as those mentors for our young people and for our community. We all need to see folks rising up from the hometown. And so thank you all, each and every one of you. Congratulations, and thanks for serving that. I also want to thank the committee, because I was talking to somebody earlier. This school was doing a masterful job in honoring alumni, clearly setting the standard throughout the county for how these are done. And I want to thank you all for everything that you're doing for that. Thank you, congratulations. This is a proclamation everyone will get from the Hartford Senators, thanking you for your work and congratulating you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
The State Delegate Steve Johnson for District 34A. On behalf of the Maryland General Assembly and the Harford County delegation, I'd like to offer you this proclamation. Be it hereby known to all that sincerest congratulations are offered to Alfred Calabria and all of the honorees and awardees today. His induction into the Edgewood High School Hall of Fame, honoring his achievements as an outstanding scholar, athlete, and his career contributions spanning the corporate world, academia, and nonprofits. Again, thank you all and for what you do and to give back to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Johnson.
Good morning. My name is Cindy Mumby. On behalf of County Executive Barry Glassman and all of the citizens of Harford County, Mr. Calabria, and to all of the awardees today, I'd like to present this proclamation from the County Executive recognizing your outstanding career at Edgewood High School, but also your outstanding contributions to our community. Thank you and congratulations.
Thank you very much. Is it me? Well, if you ever need training in humility, this is the way to get it. I just need to get my reading glasses out. But going first is also a treat, because then I get to try to avoid any mistakes that possibly could be replicated. But first I want to thank all the Principal Mack and all the elected representatives and their delegates here. Also, and first of all, I want to thank my best friend, advocate, wife, and soulmate, Cindy, who is in the audience, daughter Gina here, son Adam, and grandson Elliot for being here to share this moment. My family is most responsible for whatever I have achieved in my life. Thanks also to my dear friend and classmate Jim Rawl, who's here, our class vice president, and the smartest dude in our class. I also want to thank Alex. Now, one of the things I did before, in my preparation for this, is to ask Alex for some of his background, because I was interested in that. I knew that I was going to be impressed because I've met other IB students from Edgewood and others. But Alex has a particularly impressive background. He's student government president here. He holds positions at the County Association and also statewide. I just learned that he is in the final stages of being selected as a page for the Maryland Assembly. So he is representative, I think, and typical of some of the outstanding students here, and it's a reflection of the education they're getting, I think, in this wonderful institution. I also met a few other IB students, if I can remember their name, Alexis, Madison, and Cassis, I believe, and they were also wonderful. We had a little chat before the ceremony began, and I think if each of you has a chance to have a chat with these young people, you will be very impressed and encouraged about our future. My 5 years at Edgewood, yes, there were 5, were foundational, and my formation as a young man and citizen first occurred here. It was significant for all of us in the EHS class of 1965 to recall what was going on all around us, as the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was passed the year before, and the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was passed only 2 months after our graduation. There was great fear in the school board, administration, and faculty that the school desegregation that affected all county schools in our last 2 years would cause massive chaos. In fact, as a student, I hardly noticed any student unrest, with only a few very minor exceptions. And I attribute this stability, this relative stability, due to the large percentage of students from military families at Edgewood at that time. Students were quite comfortable with classmates of different races and backgrounds. Since I was raised in an immigrant neighborhood in Connecticut where my friends were of many varying races and ethnic backgrounds, adjusting to my new schoolmates was not difficult and quite pleasurable. Recently, Fay Vincent, the commissioner of Major League Baseball from 1989 to 1992, wrote an op-ed for the Wall Street Journal entitled, "I Should Have Thanked My Teachers." In it, he wrote, "I regret I never told them how profound their effect on me was." A major influence in my high school days was Chuck Marzin, as was mentioned earlier, Hall of Fame class of 2011. He taught me what a pick was in JV basketball, and good sportsmanship and how to win with grace and lose with dignity on the baseball diamond. Chuck, most importantly, reminded me that what I lacked in height and size, I more than compensated for by being a slow runner. So I became a catcher. As my senior English teacher, he showed me how to enjoy a Shakespearean play or sonnet. Thanks, Coach. And also his lovely wife, Jeanette. Coach Bud Coakley, who I did have a chance to thank, I believe his daughter Kim is in the audience, also Hall of Fame class of 2011, was influential for my experience on the gridiron. Thanks, Coach. Wish you were here. I wish I could have thanked Appy Volusia, my Latin teacher, for 4 years. I did not appreciate at that time that this would be a major contribution to this engineering student's communication skills, as there were scant college electives beyond the required math and science. Thanks, Appy. Other faculty and staff I thank are Joe Brown, Hall of Fame 2017. I think I saw Mr. Brown. Good to see you again. Susan McGuire, Ron Davis, Bill Mullen, Gene Gall, Guy Weber, Bugs Grafton, Sarah Janes, and there were others. So my advice to students in attendance, thank your teachers, coaches, and other mentors now while you can. Although this is indeed an honor of the highest sort, we are here not so much to lay a claim on each inductee, but rather to celebrate and endorse the critical role and impact that role modeling can have on others. Role modeling is hardly new. We find in the Bible, in Titus chapter 2, verse 7, "Show yourself in all respects to be a model of good works, and in your teaching show integrity, dignity, and sound speech that cannot be condemned." When in 8th, 9th, and 10th grade at EHS, I distinctly recall looking up at successful students in higher grades. I saw great student athletes who were also in student government and scored high academic achievement. Larry Melfa, Hall of Fame 2015 and godfather to my daughter Gina, was a major influence. Sadly, Larry passed away last year, and I miss him greatly. I also watched successful students like Don Morrison, co-chair of this program, Alan Ingalls, Hall of Fame class of 2011, and Jeff Glover, Hall of Fame 2012. My classmate, Bob McCone, Hall of Fame 2017, drew my admiration and respect by overcoming early disadvantage in his life to become a renowned coach, educator, husband, father, and grandfather. Instead of seeing his early condition as an excuse for later problems, he leveraged his considerable talents and took responsibility for his future. This value of personal responsibility is one that I perceive as not an evidence in popular cultural discourse, but is enormously beneficial for those who embrace it. I rather like the reminder provided to us by the poet Maya Angelou. Each of us, famous or infamous, is a role model for somebody, and if we aren't, we should behave as though we are. cheerful, kind, loving, courteous, because you can be sure someone is watching and taking deliberate and diligent notes. As a result of observing behaviors I wanted to emulate, I developed aspirational values, not that I have achieved these, that have served me well. The first is uncompromising integrity, servant leadership, lifelong learning, embracing change, personal accountability, and associate with others better than myself, one I learned from my immigrant grandparents. So I leave you today with the hope that one or more of the stories you hear will inspire at least one student to aim high and stand on this stage in the near future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Al. Our next recipient is a proud member of the class of 1973. She is Miss Gina Austin Abate. Gina shared that her best memory of Edgewood High School was playing field hockey and going to football games. In fact, we played together. She described herself as being athletic, energetic, and ambitious. The biggest life lesson she took away from Edgewood High School was the importance of friendships and how to lead. That may be why she said Carol Barker, who is a Hall of Famer, was the staff member who influenced her most. Carol, or Tooch, as many of us call her, taught her everything she learned about working together as a team. We love you, Toochie. Coming to the microphone to describe why this incredible person is about to become a member of our Hall of Fame is her student ambassador, Ms. Ryan Parncutt.
Good morning. Gina Austin was one of those students at Edgewood High that you just knew was going to be a star as an adult. A standout field hockey player, member of the National Honor Society, a class officer, Miss Austin was named a top 10 senior when she graduated. But the heights that Gina Austin Abate has reached in a continuing career has gone beyond even the promise she showed in high school and in her honors college work. A former senior leader in the Department of Veteran Affairs and top software firms, she is now Chief Operating Officer at a company involved with cybersecurity. In fact, Ms. Abate has been recognized by respectful regional publications as one of Maryland's most influential and most admired CEOs for her vision and leadership in internet security. She is chairperson of the board for the Cybersecurity Association of Maryland and was a key supporter in getting a bill signed into law that makes our state a leader in encouraging businesses to invest in cybersecurity. Ms. Abate is also involved with colleges encouraging students in the areas of science, technology, and math. She and her husband, Daryl, have 2 grown sons and 5 grandchildren. I think that you'll agree with me that Gina Austin Abate is a model for young women everywhere and is a deserving member of the Edgewood High School Hall of Fame.
Thank you, Ryan, and all our distinguished guests. It is an honor to be selected for the EHS Hall of Fame, and I thank Susan Sinclair, my role model, Miss Barker, and Bonnie Hayden for nominating me, and the committee for selecting me. For those of you that don't know the Austin family, I am the oldest of 5 children. It's myself, my sister Kim in the audience, Brian, Paul, and Mark John. Our dad was Pastor John, who was the minister at Trinity Lutheran, and he preached at no fewer than 6 baccalaureates. He says it could be 7 or 8, which we do believe could be the record. It is a true tribute to our parents, teachers, and coaches that each of us have gone on to be successful in our chosen careers. Edgewood gave us many positive life experiences and lessons from team sports we were involved in and our organizational leadership roles. We made lifelong friends and have endless positive memories. Thank you to our teachers and coaches in the audience. A key philosophy I learned that has served me well is to stay open to change and where that change might take you. When I was a student at Edgewood, I could not have imagined where the technology industry was headed and the endless opportunities it would provide me as an individual and a leader. My advice is to never be afraid to stretch and try something new, and always go after you want with energy. My personal mantra is to stay open, be positive, and be bold. These are all acclamations I learned as a child and student. And I think some of you know we lost my mom a couple of weeks ago, and she was always one to say, go for it, and don't say no, make it happen. And so that's a key role model for me. Thank you to my husband, Daryl, and my two sons, Matthew and Jonathan. They have given me unconditional love and support throughout my career. They also keep me very grounded. So whenever I cross that threshold and I come home, all that stays at the door, and I'm a wife and a mom, and those are the most important roles that I have ever played. So thank you to my family who's here today with me, and my dear friends, all of them from high school, and congratulations to my fellow inductees.
Thank you, Gina. You know, one of the questions I asked this esteemed group was, if you had a do-over, what would it be? The majority said they didn't have a do-over. They wouldn't have done a thing differently. One person said he would have studied more to be prepared for college. The other one had a very interesting insight, said, I wish I would have taken time to connect and stay connected with friends. It's so easy to move on, especially when you leave the area, to dissociate yourself with friends. But that's what I have to say about social media, bringing us all back together. So I thought it was pretty interesting that most would not have changed a thing. The third of our inductees is known by everyone as Chick. Officially, he's Raymond W. Ham, Jr., class of 1978. Chick was involved in everything. He said, I loved basketball, choir, golf, student government, proms, field trips. I'm sure he loved homecoming. You named it, he loved it. He described himself as being focused, outgoing, and involved, and believes the biggest life lesson he took away from Edgewood High School was this: there is no substitute for dedicated effort. His life's ambition, oddly enough, he knew he wanted to be a banker. He wanted to be a leader in the world of finance and help organizations serving the broader needs of the community. And now, to help you learn more about this remarkable man, here's his student ambassador, Ms. Francesca Arcaful.
Chick Ham didn't miss a day of school from first grade through his graduation, but that's just one small part of what makes his story so special. For the past 42 years, he has been a senior leader in the regional banking industries, currently serving as vice president at PNC Bank. After beginning his career as a summer intern following his sophomore year at Edgewood High. At EHS, he played 2 sports, sang in chorus, was in jazz ensemble, and performed in a school musical. He earned a Maryland State Senatorial Scholarship that led to a cum laude degree and master's from Loyola College. Rising through the ranks at area banks institutions, Mr. Ham has been honored at every step as a business leader. Along the way, he's given back as an active leader in dozens of governmental, school, and volunteer organizations that you can read all about in your program. A prime example is his family support of the Challenger League in Cecil County, which provides opportunities for kids with emotional or physical challenges to play sports. Mr. Ham is a trustee with Cecil College and is chair of the board of Union Hospital in Elkton, where his family lives. He was also an instructor at Edgewood High's Junior Achievement Program. Mr. Ham and his wife, Ann, have 2 have 2 children and a precious 6-year-old granddaughter. Please join me in welcoming into the Edgewood High Hall of Fame a man who exemplifies business success and the volunteer spirit, Mr. Raymond W. Chick Ham, Jr.
I prepared some remarks, but I'm feeling the need for all the things that you've heard about in that bio. The subject that I've heard the most about from friends and family over the last couple of weeks is the fact that I went through 13 years of public education and never missed a day of school. So I want to explain why. My mother's here today, and the rule in my house was very simple. If you're sick enough to stay home from school, then you're sick enough to go to the doctor. Now, what you need to understand is that I have always been deathly afraid of injections. So Mom would say, that's fine if you want to stay home, I'll call the doctor and he'll give you a needle this big. And off I went to school. So that's how that worked. I am deeply honored and truly humbled to be here today and receive this recognition. I look down this roster of Hall of Famers, and I see names of people who have touched my life many times in many positive ways. Folks like Bud Coakley, who most know as a football coach, but I know as the guy who taught me how to swim at age 5. The Bradley brothers, who thrilled anyone who ever watched them play basketball. Ted Moyer, my baseball coach, and a shining example of community leadership. Jimmy Bourne, the Olympic swimmer, who I used to drive to practice when he had to go to Towson. And so many teachers and professionals who have touched my life in many ways along this journey, and folks that continue to help me today, like my good friend Carl Roberts. For me to be counted among this number is truly amazing. I know Edgewood is a place where working class families are dedicated to the effort of trying to prepare their kids for the best possible tomorrow. At this school and in the backyards of this community, I learned some very valuable lessons. Play to win, but always play fair. Respect your teammates. Be humble in victory and gracious in defeat, and don't be a quitter. What I know today is that these qualities cannot be taught in business school, but they can be learned in great communities like Edgewood. I sang in the choir for many years, and I will tell you it was a great experience. Singing in a choir is a place where you get to project your voice, but at the same time have to listen very carefully to everyone else around you. It's a great skill, and one that I wish our elected officials would learn a little better sometimes. Finally, there was something about growing up in a community with a strong military influence that was quite special. If you grew up in Edgewood on a regular basis, you had good friends leave the area because their parents were being transferred to a different military base. Going through this uprooting could be very tough at times, but along the way, from that experience, we learned something about duty, honor, sacrifice, service to country, and service to others. I will always feel blessed to have had many good role models and great experiences at Edgewood, and I was doubly blessed to grow up in a house on Perry Avenue, one that was filled with the perfect measure of love, discipline, faith, and encouragement. So I'll close with a bit of a confession. As you can tell, I've always been proud of my time at Edgewood and my connection to the Edgewood Ram community. However, on August 11th, 1984, I married the 1978 Aberdeen Eagle valedictorian. And the truth is, and she's here today, of course, and the truth is, anything that I have accomplished is attributable to a great partnership with my bride, Ann. So thank you, Ann. Thanks, Mom. Thanks to all who have made this day very special, and thanks to the great community of Edgewood.
Mr. Doime, that was beautiful. That was gorgeous. And it says so much for you only haven't been together for about 4 weeks. And this is your first year here at Edgewood High School. Let's give him another round of applause. Wonderful. I almost like watching you, Mr. DeMoy, as much as I watch the kids. I can tell your heart and soul is in this. I'm wondering which one of you is wearing the robe I wore in Coraliers. We called ourselves the Coraliers then, Edgewood High School Coraliers. So I'm just be checking your labels later to see where my name is, okay? It was amazing. All right. Our next honoree has already lived a varied and full life. A star athlete, military academy grad, and member of the armed forces. He is now a financial advisor. He is Mr. Patrick A. Pollard, class of 1983. When I read Pat's responses, a theme developed. His biggest life lesson was the power of a team when all the members buy in. Best overall memory, going undefeated in senior year of football. His life's ambition, simple, to make it through West Point. When asked who most influenced him, Pat named several staff members, two of whom are among the Edgewood High School Hall of Fame. He is grateful to Forrest Wiest for instilling in him discipline and preparation, to Frank Mazzanotti for the fearlessness to compete, and to Tom Konjerski for encouraging him to enjoy whatever he chose to do. Here to tell you more about Pat Pollard is his student ambassador, Mr. Desmond McAllister.
Hi, good morning and welcome to Edgewood High School. When it comes to honored athletes in the history of Edgewood High, Pat Pollard has to rank right up there with the best. He was starting quarterback on the Rams' only undefeated team in school history and piloted his team to its best 3-season record ever at 24-5. He was named as one of the first ever All-Metro football players in Edgewood's program and was chosen as a scholar athlete by the Eastern Regional National Football Foundation. If that's not enough, Pat was part of the 1981 Rams State Baseball Championship and was named All-County as a senior after having been a 3-year starter on the team. If his story ended here, it would have been impressive. But his 3.9 grade point average, National Honor Society membership, and selection as top math student in his senior class helped him earn an appointment to the U.S. Military Academy at West Point and his service to his country as an Army Airborne Ranger, achieving the rank of captain. When he left the military, he returned home to begin an outstanding career in the field of financial services, where he is now Senior Vice President of Merrill Lynch. Mr. Pollard has earned his company's Circle of Excellence in each of the past 5 years. Still, that's only another part of what makes Pat Pollard a role model for all of us. He has demonstrated his commitment to service by giving back to his alma mater in many ways, including his continuing membership on the EHS Academy of Finance Board and as a founding member of the Rams for Others that raises money to benefit deserving causes in the Edgewood area. And he has been president of the Bel Air Rotary for the past 17 years, as well as a member of the Great Bel Air Community Foundation. Mr. Pollard and his wife, Kristen, have 2 sons and a daughter. Join with me as we thank Patrick A. Pollard for his continuing service to his community and his country as he honors us with membership in the Edgewood High School Hall of Fame.
Unfortunately, these days I have to get these out if I'm going to read anything. Thank you, Desmond, Principal Mack, Edgewood High School students, that was beautiful, Edgewood faculty, and all distinguished guests. I'd also like to thank Don Morrison, Mrs. Helen Morrison, and Scott Elliott for all they do for the Hall of Fame and the Edgewood Alumni Society. Congratulations to my fellow inductees. Your accomplishments are truly amazing. I'd also like to thank all of those in the Hall of Fame that voted for me. And I've been around long enough to know of most of the people in the Edgewood High School Hall of Fame. I know what they've accomplished, I know their talents, I know the type of people they are, which makes this a tremendous honor and a humbling honor for me. I'd like to start by thanking some people who came a long way to see us today. My sister, Mary L. Pollard Madden, Edgewood High School class of '87. Along with my brother Phil in the class of '85, me in the class of '83. There was a Pollard here from 1979 to 1987. We pretty much had the Reagan years covered. I'm proud that all of us were strong enough in the classroom and active enough in extracurricular activities to make an impact here, particularly my brother Phil, while playing music under Hall of Fame band director Mr. Jim Mertzen. I'm also thankful that my parents were able to make the 8-hour drive here, but I knew they would. They've always been there for Phil, Mary Ellen, and myself with unconditional love and advice. Mom more so on the love, Dad more so on the advice. I'd also like to recognize my wife, Kristen. We recently celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary, and after 23 years became empty nesters last month. So with this new phase, Chris, I couldn't imagine going through it without you. When I got into the wealth management business 26 years ago, they sent me to New York for 4 weeks of training, which culminated in a dinner in New York at a fancy Manhattan restaurant. The speaker's theme was privileged by the right of birth, and that we were privileged to be in the 5% of the people in this world that were born in the country where we had the freedom to change our status and lot in life, primarily through hard work. So after I was notified that I was elected to the Hall of Fame, I reflected on my time at Edgewood High School. It occurred to me that I was privileged by the right of Edgewood. I was privileged to be able to attend Edgewood High School with passionate teachers that cared about you as a student and a person, and some of the greatest coaches in the history of Harford County. I was also privileged to go to school with students from hardworking families where I learned a work ethic, mental and physical toughness, the importance of teamwork, and the desire to win, all skills that would help me later in life. When I got here, I was privileged that my high school experience started with my first homeroom teacher and geography teacher and Hall of Famer, Mr. Doug Johnson, who made us realize that learning could be fun. I was privileged to play JV football that year under Coach Tim Zello, who was a tremendous coach for a JV football team. He taught us about toughness and making the effort to win. He also taught us a few words and phrases that probably should not be repeated here. My sophomore year, I was privileged to have Tom Konjerski as my biology teacher, who taught us to love what you do. I later became his aide, and he is still my friend today. Also, as a sophomore, I was privileged to make the varsity football team, and I learned a lot about leadership from some great seniors like Tim Elder, Ricky Pullen, Glenn Bensley, Jim Shaw, Tim Kuzma, Brad Palmer, and of course my blindside left tackle and Hall of Famer, Bruce Riley. We won the county championship that year to the surprise of many people, and that was despite having the slowest backfield in the history of Edgewood High School with Bensley at tailback and Chris Cullum at fullback and myself at quarterback. Later that year, I was privileged to make the varsity baseball team, coached by Hall of Famer Steve Williams, who taught us about staying positive in the face of adversity, focusing on the situation at hand. We won the state championship that year led by Herbie Crumley, Buddy Young, Scott Richardson, and of course, my classmate and Hall of Famer Scott Elliott. Some more teachers I had the privilege of studying under were in the math department, Mrs. Francis and Mr. Howard, in English, Mr. Green, and of course, in social studies, Mr. Holsworth. His government class was sort of a rite of passage for Edgewood High School seniors and certainly taught you how to perform under pressure as well as learning about the government. Senior year of football was truly special. I was privileged to play on the only defeated team in school history. We had a large group of seniors that year. Many of us had played together since we were kids. There were no superstars on that team, just a lot of very good players that were all in on the concept of the team. We were led by great captains, Hall of Famer Keith Rawlings and Martin Higgins. We also had all county players like Tal Taylor, Kenny Crawford, Scott Scungio, Steve Smith, Timmy Deptel, and the late Tony Taylor. We had some great role players on that team too as seniors, Jeff Hoffer, David Good, Stephen Williams, Walt Johnsky, Tim Grimsley, and Jerry Ashby. We averaged over 30 points a game that year, and only gave up 3 a game. We were truly dominant. We were lucky enough to, after our football games, be able to celebrate at the Edgewood McDonald's because of community supporter and Hall of Famer Tony Mioli would give us a free Big Mac after every win. There's a couple of guys that up until now I haven't mentioned, but they were the coaches of the varsity football team along with the aforementioned Coach Zello. I was truly privileged to play for Coach Forrest Weiss, head coach Forrest Weiss, and Coach Frank Mezzanotte, both Hall of Famers. Coach Mez was known more for lacrosse than football, but he was a tremendous football coach. More importantly, he taught us about how to play with heart and passion and believe in ourselves. He taught us to be fearless. Coach Weiss taught us about organization and discipline and attention to detail and preparation. Oftentimes in practice, we'd run a very simple off-tackle play 15 times in a row until he was satisfied everybody was doing it perfectly. They were a great complement to each other. Without those two, I might not be standing here today. So finally, it was a privilege to graduate with the class of '83, the greatest class in Edgewood history. So we've got evidence. There we go. Hall of Famers Scott Elliott, Keith Rawlings, Naquin Dang, Richard Chismar, and I'm sure more to come. So yes, my bio states some neat things that I've accomplished and that I'm proud of, but they never would have happened if I wasn't privileged by the right of birth, but privileged by the right of Edgewood. Thank you, and go Rams.
I'm so glad I'm the MC because I can say that was after the class of 1972. Well done. John Scheck, our final alumni inductee is our representative from the class of 1987. And while he has moved on to fame in the entertainment industry, his heart has never left Edgewood. We are thrilled that John is here. John could make it, he couldn't make it. He could make it, he couldn't make it. The reason is because he's fresh off the set of filming Batwoman, where he's filming on location in Toronto. Miss Alexis Waters is Mr. Scheck's student ambassador. She will tell you more about this outstanding Edgewood High School grad.
Good morning. If all you know about John Scheck is that he was the lead singer of The Wonders in Tom Hanks' debut as director in the 90s movie That Thing You Do, and he's been in more than 160 Hollywood productions, you're missing the best part of his story about his Edgewood High School alumnus. He is one of the most dedicated supporters of the anti-sexual violence and students with learning disability causes in the nation. He is an outspoken sexual abuse survivor and is involved with leading national groups in bringing the issue to light. Mr. Scheck has testified before the U.S. Congress on the importance of keeping arts in our schools and has joined others in the Adopt the Arts initiative. He has not forgotten where he came from, supporting hometown efforts such as Home Runs for the Homeless, a project that raises more than $20,000 each year to support homeless families in our county. Mr. Scheck has also been an EHS commencement speaker and helped dedicate the new Ram Stadium as a keynote speaker. While at Edgewood High, he was a founding member of the Arts Club and played varsity lacrosse. In addition to his success in a variety of films, he has appeared in a number of Showtime dramas. He has teamed with fellow EHS Hall of Famer Richard Chizmar and with the legendary Stephen King to write for a Master of Horror series. Most recently, he has been involved with Mark Wahlberg in a documentary about Oriole legend Rick Dempsey's bank-robbing Little League coach. Mr. Scheck and his wife, Julie Solomon, have a 5-year-old son, Camden. Please help me celebrate the latest honor bestowed on Mr. John Scheck, that being the member of the Edgewood High School Hall of Fame.
Hey, everybody. This is an incredible honor. I get to come home. I can do it. How do you do it? That's all right, I got it. I get to come home. I've been traveling the world since 1987. And I'm incredibly grateful just to be here. I'm grateful to be alive. I'm grateful that I get to see my parents for this short period of time and go back to doing what I do, and that's running around the world in Vancouver with Batwoman and Supergirl. And I have to tell everyone, I have held the hand of some incredible people, but it all started here when everyone else was holding my hand. My parents took me through all these years of it was a struggle. Everyone may have had great accomplishments here at Edgewood, but it was really tough for me. I had a really hard time. I couldn't learn properly. I found the arts that saved me. I had Kara and Mindy to get me through pretty much most of it. I had the Elliots across the street who took care of us when my parents were working so hard. I had my sister who kicked Tim Scott's ass when he picked me up and threw me on the ground on the bus because I was the 98-pound wrestler. I had Scott, who was always next door to me, who would always play catch with me and raise me up and show me that we could really do things if we just worked really, really hard. And then when I got out to Hollywood, I met incredible people, but I met some really asshole people, and they were really tough on me, and they were really mean to me, and they took advantage of me. And I rose up, and I only did that because I'm from Edgewood. There was times in my career where I was on a horseback leading about 100 men charging for the Texas Revolution. I had a sword out in front. I was underneath a really bad horse who was just scared to death, and I had to lead the charge. And I remember just before I took off, leading that charge, I remember Frank Mezzanotte telling me what I could do in this world, and I had the heart to do it all. He said, you follow your heart and you'll make it. And that's all I've ever done, is just follow my heart. I have played roles that I wasn't supposed to play, but somehow they came to me. And when they came to me, I remember read this script. It was from Cold Case. Anyone ever see Cold Case? So I got offered this part, and it was a role of an African American. And I was like, what? Okay. Wow, what an honor that I could play an African American. He was mulatto, so I could pass for that. It was in black and white, so it had no color to it. But the only reason I took that role was because I was from Edgewood, because I knew about diversity. I was asked to carry, I was asked to hold the hand of a woman who was too scared to walk out in public because she was gay. And the only reason I had the courage to do that was because I was from Edgewood. I used to walk her in front of the car, the lights, and we used to parade and do a really good job of acting. And that was Ellen DeGeneres. I used to walk her around, and the only reason I could do that was because I was from Edgewood. The heart of Edgewood has seen some amazing things through all the accomplishments of everyone here. And I embody that. Me and Richard Chismar were walking down the halls of New Line or one of those, and Sam Jackson was there. There was all these big name people that I could name drop endlessly, but we only looked at each other and said, we can do this because we're from Edgewood. Coming from here makes you very special. You get to see everything all at once. I'm amazed at this incredible auditorium. Everyone always brings up the military. We get have the military. And my father being a Baltimore City police officer, I learned one valuable lesson, and that is the most important thing that we could ever do is to give back. So I'm grateful to be part of this. It's not alumni, it's a Hall of Fame. I'm really grateful that Scott fought so hard, and I'm really grateful for whoever filled out the paperwork, because I can't fill paperwork out. I'm dyslexic, and when I see forms or anything like that, it frightens me, and I will do everything. If my mom doesn't do it, or Mindy didn't do it, or Kara didn't do it, my sister didn't do it, my dad wasn't going to do it, someone had to do it because I wasn't going to do it. So whoever filled out the paperwork, thank you very much. I'm really grateful to be here with everybody. I know that we all get to accomplish incredible things, and if I could give you guys one thing, speak courage to comfort. Speak courage to comfort. Wherever you go, remember that. And lead from your heart, just like Mezzanotte taught me. Thanks, guys.
John, that was amazing. Thank you so much. I recall as I was going through your bio that one of the shows that you appeared in was Blue Bloods. Was it Blue Bloods? Yeah. So just later, I want to ask you a little bit about Tom Selleck. Okay, it's just between you and me. That's okay. Before I introduce you to our final honoree today, I'd like to take a moment to urge you, if you haven't done so already, to pause in the walk down the school's main hallway at what we call our Hall of Fame gallery. Notice how the light shines on each of the images as you pass, symbolically highlighting these folks, a group I'm proud and humbled to be a part of. The Edgewood High Alumni Association is indebted to past and present Edgewood High School administrations who have supported and embraced the Hall of Fame as a way to inspire the current and future generations of students, staff, and the community. I really do have to take my hat off to Don Morrison and Scott and Helen. You are amazing. You have no idea the work that goes on behind the scenes, beginning tomorrow to plan for next year. Our final inductee is a man who followed his passion into education and in serving his fellow man spiritually. Mr. Joseph A. Schmitz, or just plain Joe, as he likes to be called, is a humble and incredible person. Joe let me know that his responses to my questions would be atypical because they reflect his experience at Edgewood High School as a staff member. He's a former Edgewood High School teacher, assistant principal, and principal. He describes himself as present, reliable, and empowering. He respected many of the older staff when he began as a teacher, but was most influenced by his colleagues, George Topher, Jerry Nava, and Brian Shope. He said they were always searching to figure out better ways to teach content. The leaders who influenced him were Bob Williams, John Mayhorn, and Steve Williams. Joe says they built my confidence as both a teacher and an administrator and placed me in situations where I would be successful as I grew into my role and learned. Joe's fondest memories of Edgewood are the times after graduation when he would have the chance to linger with students and their families while they savored the moment. Here to introduce our final inductee, Joe Schmitz, is his student ambassador, Ms. Chris Chanelli.
In the history of Harford County Public Schools, only one person has ever been a teacher, assistant principal, and principal consecutively in the same school. That person is our next Hall of Fame inductee, Mr. Joe Schmitz. Mr. Schmitz didn't start out to be an educator at all. He went to and graduated from law school, passing the bar and practicing for 8 years before he heeded the call of the classroom. He became a social studies teacher at Edgewood High School in 1992, earning the respect of students, colleagues, and administrators with his knowledge and teaching skill. Not only that, but he led the EHS speech and debate and mock trial teams to unprecedented success statewide. His success in the classroom, as a sponsor, and as a contributor to school leadership resulted in his being named an assistant principal here, and in 2001 as principal at Edgewood High School. He became principal after a period of instability in that role at EHS, restoring community during his 6 years as school leader. While principal, he was a key supporter of the new Academy of Finance and helped implement the International Baccalaureate program, in addition to planning for the opening of this new building. After being reassigned to another school as principal, Mr. Schmitz was promoted to the executive director of secondary education, where he was in charge of all 19 middle and high public schools in the county. As with the call to be an educator, he followed another passion, that of scripture study, leading to a role in the prison ministry. Having retired from his leadership position this past July, Mr. Schmitz is completing a course of study that will qualify him to work in faith information at a parish level. He and his wife, Katie, have grown 3 children. I am pleased to be the first to introduce Mr. Joe Schmitz as a member of the EHS Hall of Fame.
I'm tremendously honored to be here today and very grateful. By the way, when they referred to instability of principals before me, they weren't referring to the individuals, they were referring to the rapid turnover in the position. since Bob and Steve Williams are here, I want to clarify. I'd like to thank the Hall of Fame committee. I'd like to thank my nominators, Bob Williams, Steve Williams, Mr. Kilo Mack, and Mr. George Topher, who couldn't be here because he's had some shoulder surgery, for being in front of you today. I'd certainly like to thank my wife, Katie, who made it possible for me to spend the hours here that were needed to accomplish some things that we did. And I thank my sister Judy for being with me today as well. I guess if I look back on my time at Edgewood, it's very funny. When I come here, I never actually worked in this building, and yet every time I come here, I still feel like I'm coming back to a home that was mine. And, you know, part of it's the faces that you see, but part of it's just the feeling of belonging in this community, and I'm very appreciative of that. If there's one thing I can remember about teaching here, it's just, and being an administrator, it's just, well, maybe not an assistant principal so much, but just how much fun it was. Well, even when I was an assistant principal, Steve Williams was my principal, so we had a few laughs. I was cutting up with, I have to tell a story on myself. I was cutting up with Steve in the office when I came in, and he said, you know, pretty soon you'll find out that when you come back to one of these events, you know, these people are going to walk up to you that you know you recognize, and you can't pull the name out. And we were laughing about that. Of course, I was thinking that'll never happen to me. And so we walked out into the main lobby there, and people were walking up, and I was feeling pretty good about myself. Hi, Bob McCone. Hi, Mr. Williams. Hi, Paul. Hi, Scott Elliott. Until County Council President Patrick Vincenti walked up to me, and I said, "Hi, Vince." Sorry, Mr. Vincenti. I was talking after church one day to a guy, and he asked me what I did, and I said I was a high school principal, and he said, "Oh my gosh, that's got to be the worst job imaginable." And I said, "You've got to be kidding. I think it's the best job imaginable." He said, "Well, really, what is it that you actually do?" And I said, "I get to provide opportunities for students and teachers to grow and learn every day." And you know, I think my principals, Bob Williams, who hired me and gave me tons of opportunities, you know, that really let me stretch my wings in my first couple years as a teacher, and Steve Williams, who was my principal when I was an assistant principal, really pushed me to be successful and gave me those opportunities, and that's something I took away from working with them. If you look at the other people on the stage today, my resume really pales in comparison to theirs. And so I'm proud to be here with them, and I know that my predecessors viewed the job the same way, because they've obviously taken tremendous opportunities to grow and learn and to be excellent people. So I guess the last thing I'd say is just I'm extraordinarily grateful to have been able to work here as a teacher, an assistant principal, and a principal for 15 years. Thank you.
I know you agree with me that the 2019 Edgewood High School Hall of Fame class truly measures up to those who have preceded them and sets the bar high for those who will come later. It has been my heartfelt pleasure to be your MC today, and I truly hope we can all come together again next year for the 10th anniversary induction ceremony. Remember, those of you who will be going on tours of the building should begin assembling in the back of the auditorium with your student guides. Hall of Famers, please remain on stage for photos. Isn't it just the most perfect setting and the most perfect weekend to bring home those who have done so much for our community at large and whose hearts will always remain here at Edgewood High School. We salute you. And now I'd like to invite Principal Mack to come forward for a few closing remarks.
Okay. Don Morrison, I'd like to thank you, Scott Elliott, Helen, and the rest of the Alumni Association for your hard work for this event today. I'd also like to thank Harford County Network for being here as well. Again, as you start to do your visits around the building, for those who haven't been here, your tour guides or ambassadors will take you around, and we will have lunch for you in the IB area. So take your time. It's good to see all the family and friends here today, and this concludes our portion of this part of the inductee Hall of Fame ceremony. Thank you.